Hi! Welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll be discussing OmegaComplex by Oneulbom, something like that. And if you haven't already, click the subscribe button now and get your BL Library card for the BL Library. And before we get started, there will be spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled on this manhwa, go ahead and click off now. No worries, I'll catch you next time. For those of you who decide to stick around, let's go over some content warnings. There may be references to male pregnancy, fertility issues, love triangle, self-deprecation, trauma, heterophobia, in this case it's the fear of the opposite secondary sex, self-hatred, mentions of the military, being outed, specifically one's secondary sex, excessive drinking, possessiveness, betrayal, gossiping, coercion, body commentary, specifically comments on thinness, mentions of breakups, not between the main couple, peer pressure, overwork, and mentions of a relationship between a high schooler and an adult, not the main couple, as these things do appear in the manhwa. But if that's okay with you, let's go and get started. Yunwoo is your average, run-of-the-mill, beta college student. Or so he's made everyone believe. Yunwoo is actually an Omega, and though there's nothing wrong with being an Omega, Yunwoo's first love and childhood friend, Taejum, was once assaulted by an Omega during their time in grade school. As such, he ended up with an intense hatred for Omegas. Thankfully, in their youth, Yunwoo hadn't manifested yet, and he could be there for Taejum. But it wasn't long after that he ultimately manifested as an Omega, and Yunwoo made the painful decision to leave Taejum behind, pretending to be a beta so he never had to see Taejum hate him for something he couldn't control. It's been years since they ran into one another, though not without great effort on Yunwoo's side. Though they go to the same university, they've never met, as Yunwoo even decided on a different major to ensure they never encountered one another. Unfortunately, despite Yunwoo's careful planning, Taejum's department also shows up during a department meetup. Thankfully, Yunwoo has done some additional planning. To hide his pheromones, he smokes pheromone cigarettes, which are made for betas who want to put out pheromones like alphas and omegas. This does seem to fool Taejum, but for how long? It seems Taejum has no intention of letting Yunwoo escape him again. However, while Yunwoo's cigarettes might fool Taejum, they haven't fooled Yunwoo's classmate Dohyun, another alpha. Thankfully, Dohyun is willing to keep Yunwoo's secret, but he wants Yunwoo just as much as Taejum. Pitted between two alphas, can Yunwoo keep his identity a secret, or will he succumb to all the alpha pheromones surrounding him? To start with, the art in this is very cute. However, I have to nitpick something. Often Yunwoo's eyes are way too close together. It's not a consistent problem, but its inconsistency makes it all the more noticeable to me. This doesn't seem to have been an issue in earlier episodes, which do have a slightly different style from later episodes, and that probably played a factor. Still, it's something I noticed over and over again throughout the series. Taejum, however, is everything. He's what Yoonsul from Third Ending wishes he was. Yoonsul looks like an off-brand Taejum with hardcore seaweed hair, and I love that for Taejum. Furthermore, there's a good bit of misunderstanding and miscommunication in this, though there's also lots of good communication too. One of the major issues with the miscommunication is Taejum assuming Yunwoo only confessed because they slept together and, in turn, because of pheromones. It's super unfortunate that Taejum would make that assumption. Of course, his trauma is part of it, as he was forced to feel things for an Omega due to pheromones in the past. But if we consider how Yunwoo actively avoided Taejum for so long, leaving him lost and wanting, completely unaware of why or what happened, it makes sense that he might distrust Yunwoo's feelings altogether. Having recently read Loverboy, which also deals with trauma and miscommunication, I feel this really needed a similar arc where we see Taejum waiting for Yunwoo, trying to find him, missing him, and ultimately feeling betrayed. Then I think his assumption would have the foundation it needed to make the most sense. It does make sense from what we've been told, but seeing it would have been much more powerful. Another issue I have is when Taejum rejects Yunwoo the first time. Yunwoo fails to clarify that he liked him even before he manifested, which is unfortunate and a tad annoying. But it resolves relatively quickly. Honestly, how quickly these two figure things out is a bit strange. Taejum tells Yunwoo to stay away so he can forget his love for him, even though Yunwoo confesses to him. Yunwoo heads back home, but is locked out of his house. He runs into Taejum's mom, who I wish was my wife, and I think my partner would agree, and ends up staying in Taejum's room while he waits for his parents to come home. This leads to another confession and denial. Not long after, Yunwoo calls Taejum and tells him he misses him. Taejum comes running running, and then they're all happy together. The back and forth between confessions and rejections feels so needless as a result. I really loved why Taijin rejected Yunwoo, fearing he might be forcing Yunwoo to love him with pheromones, as it aligns with his past, but it just gets tossed away, which was disappointing. I like that Yunwoo learns to honestly express himself, and Taijin learns to trust, but these developments seem to come out of nowhere. We needed more time with them apart, and see how they realized being apart again wasn't what they wanted, especially when all the cards were out on the table. Then it would be all the more powerful when they came back together. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention something that hurts me more than probably anything else in this entire series: the pregnancy. But wait, Eve, don't you adore male pregnancy in your BL? I do. I love it so much, and I was so happy when I saw it happening in the extras at the end. However, something I hate is the mention of pregnancy and the lack of a baby reveal, which is what happens in this series. We do get to see the baby on the creator's Twitter in a holiday post, which is super cute and settles my pained heart, but it's still disappointing that we don't see the baby in the series itself. If you need some payoff with your impreg, this will hurt you. I'm still happy it happened, but part of me wishes it hadn't, so I didn't get teased in the end. With all that being said, I was really hard on this title, but I did like it. I wouldn't call it a favorite by any means, but it was still really cute. It's super fluffy once the two get together, and we get tons of smut, which is always a plus in my book. But the story needed more time to develop, along with the characters themselves. I also needed more stories about the pregnancy and the baby, but that's very specific to my preferences. If you love Omegaverse and aren't looking for anything deep and dark, this is a pretty good one. But if you need depth, and you're like me and need a baby with your impreg, this will probably end up being a disappointment. So, have you read OmegaComplex? If so, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you not? Let me know in comment below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time. Bye!